Good morning, WTU. Campaign Corner has moved to Campaign Bed. I've invested in a laptop table that holds all my gubbins on, so I've actually been able to lie in my bed, immobilise every part of my body apart from my fingers, and I feel like I can be semi-productive again. The beauty is I've also learned how to do collaborative documents through Google. So I'm actually able to work with fellow members now who are connecting with me through Google Docs. We're sitting here on a live feed or a phone call. I'm talking through what needs to be written up and they're doing the button bashing for me, which has been fantastic actually, because aside from the fact that I get someone to do all the button bashing, which takes the pain out of my life, you get to bounce off somebody else's brain. I've never claimed to be the best brain or the only brain in the world, and the more brains that get together, the better, in my mind. And the few documents I've collaborated on, it was really beneficial for me to have other people's thoughts during my writing process. So they get to give me feedback as I'm writing as such. So I found great value in that. Now I've written, as always, now I've got to excuse you because I can't see very well because there's lights coming through my window. I don't know how well you can see me. Good morning everyone that says good morning. I come on and have a blast through everything I need to say, otherwise I'll forget it all, and then I come through and have a look at the questions afterwards. So what I'm going to do, I've printed off what I've got written up for those that wish to read it, and I'm going to talk through it basically now for those that don't want to or can't read. So this way WTU counts for the oral and the visual people that prefer both. So what I'm going to do now is basically just read through what I've written for you there, and then I'll go back through the questions in a few moments and we can try and get any questions. Is the sound okay, and can you all see me okay with the light, is the question, I suppose. I'm sure someone will give me a sound is okay in just a moment. So yeah, good morning WTU. I hope you're all okay and in high spirits. I hope you're better than me actually, because it's nice to know someone's doing better than yourself. You may remember last time I was on here I was a bit concerned I hadn't heard back from the solicitor. It had been over a week, and he had told me he was going to get back in touch, and I heard nothing. I thought he was poorly. It's interesting, I won't go into names because I believe in privacy and confidentiality, but I've facilitated somebody else in the group with some letter writing for a problem that they're dealing with. And they contacted me and asked if they could approach the solicitor. Well, of course you can, he's open to everybody, and he has told me he will support people from WTU within his abilities if he can. Obviously, for no money, it makes things very restricted, which is why I'm still waiting for a letter, whereas this person that was able to phone up with cash has got a letter in process, because, everyone needs their bread and butter, and you're going to take a paying customer over a non-paying customer any day of the week, because that's the economic necessity of life. You have to earn your bread and butter and your rent before you can start doing any charity or pro bono work. And this made me realise, actually, and this isn't in what I've written up, made me realise that we could have, when I say we, I mean WTU, we could actually have an active solicitor working for us now. Robert's on retainer as such. We've raised the money for the barrister to review whatever evidence we get before him. Everything Robert has done for WTU so far has been done pro bono. He hasn't been charging WTU for it. It's for free, basically, which is why it takes so long. Now, I've had members in the group who are in predicaments with the law because the law is persecuting them, and we are trying to challenge this law. None of the legal representation they can obtain will help them challenge this law. The legal representation that the state will appoint to us poor people want to just process you as quickly as possible through the system, get a guilty plea out of you as soon as possible to get you out the courthouse, get the money off you in your fines and whatever else they take off you, so you can go back out or back to prison, whichever it is that they're doing. In other words, no solicitors really are actually challenging or even doing their job properly. They're meant to defend the defendant to the best of their abilities, but unfortunately they don't. They're actually just bullying people into taking early pleas. They're threatening and intimidating people with the threat of 14 years in prison to make them plead guilty to a law that has got no foundation in evidence, so therefore is based on lies. In fact, there is a very interesting maxim of law that must be read out, if I can find it. In fact, I'll look for that afterwards. Things invalid from the beginning cannot be made valid by a subsequent act. In other words, if it's nonsense from the beginning, no matter what you say and do afterwards, it's still nonsense. And that is what cannabis prohibition is, folks, nonsense. I was glad to see the solicitor got back to me, because I wrote to him saying, I hope you're not well, or not poorly. I'm a bit concerned I've not heard from you. And he got back to me quite promptly, apologising, as you can see in his letter. And that made me realise if WTU, our community, had money, we could actually be employing this solicitor to make meaningful challenges on behalf of our members. And it all comes down to Wonga. It always comes down to money. Even the right to our prescription, it all comes down to money. So if we can devise a way for a WTU membership scheme, somehow or other, any funds generated from that membership scheme could be getting used to fund a solicitor and legal actions and legal fee letters and things like that, just to try and help challenge things. It was just frustrating to see the potential is there, but we're not able to realise this potential because most of us are broke and have got no money. So Robert got back to me. He says to me, so very sorry for the delay in coming back to you. It's been a bit of a madhouse over here. No excuses, I should have responded sooner, which is what I do like about the man. Just to confirm, I sent over to Robert some information, research Norman Lamb and Voltface had recently published. This research had lots of information about the disproportionate application of the law, especially towards ethnic minorities. And this is also a big factor of the WTU challenge that we're hoping to bring together, is this disproportionate application of law, especially against the ethnic communities of our country. So again, rather than reinventing the wheel and trying to have to do all the research ourselves, the evidence exists. So it's about trying to find the evidence from other sources and bringing it together. So he's confirmed here that he thinks the evidence will be useful and it will be able to helpful with the barrister when we get round to presenting it. I've also been wanting, because I'm fed up of living in fear of being busted. I'm sick to death of it. So I want to get in touch with the police. I want to start communication, liaisons. I actually want to withdraw consent to be governed from the Misuse of Drugs Act, because if I abide by this law, it's harmful to my health. How can I be expected to abide by a law that will harm my health? And how can any of you be expected to abide by the same law? Especially when it all comes down to Wonga. If you've got the Wonga, the money, you can pay for a prescription and you're not liable to be prosecuted. If you've got the money, you can pay for a licence to cultivate and market and distribute your cannabis products. But if you haven't got the money, if you aren't in this social elite category, then you're stuffed and you're left poor like the rest of us. And so because I'm fed up of living in fear, I want to go and take the bull by the horns. So I'll be going off to get in touch with the police. I've written what I have called a declaration of non-criminal intent, because I am not a criminal. In fact, the law says every act is to be judged by the intent of the doer. Where is the harm in my intent, or your intent for that fact? So we intend to try and challenge this and get the ball rolling. It will end up in one of two ways. I seek a letter of comfort that they won't arrest me, and if they do wish to prosecute me, they won't confiscate my goods either, until the outcome of a trial. Because until the outcome of a trial, where is it? During litigation, let nothing be changed. In other words, until the outcome, until I've been judged by a jury of my peers, they've got no right to confiscate my property. They've got no right, really, to damage any of my property. They're welcome to come and knock on the door and ask some questions and have a look, but they've got no right, really, because there should be nothing changed until a jury of my peers have determined me guilty and then given the right to confiscate my property. So I intend to try and formulate some sort of challenge in this to the police, and they'll respond in one of two ways. They'll grant it me or they'll arrest me. At this stage, I'm not bothered. I'm really, really not bothered. Come and arrest me, by all means. I've got plenty of case notes and evidence against you and the government. So, you know, if you want to play that dance, let's dance it, because one way or the other we're going to do this challenge. Simple as that. Either us challenging the government in court, or them coming to arrest me, and me fighting the charges to the death if need be, to try and set a precedent that will end the oppression of the entire canna community. And I say everyone because I've replaced alcohol and side effect-ridden pharmaceutical drugs with my own cannabis. Why should that make me a criminal? Why should it make any of you a criminal? And that's the right that I would be fighting for. And if I were to achieve that right, in a legal precedent, then that right would be granted to all of you as well, because we are apparently all equal under the law. That is, unless you consume alcohol, in which case you're treated differently under the law, and the Misuse of Drugs Act doesn't apply to you. So I wrote back to Robert saying I'm glad the data is going to be useful. I've made a draft, and I've already sent this draft to Robert, actually. It's waiting with him now. He'll have a lot to do, so I don't know how quickly he'll get back to me. And already I'm redrafting it in my mind. We've got the right to freedom of association, as long as we're not causing harm to others. That means we have a legal right to cannabis social clubs, so long as we don't harm anybody whilst we're doing them. So let's make our social clubs, people. Let's get together and make canna community clubs, culture clubs, education clubs, social clubs. Let's make a place where we, our community, can congregate in our church and practice our beliefs. Because so long as we don't harm anybody else, their law really has got no power. They are abusing the law. And we need to make them realise that. And the only way to do this will be for everyone to get as recklessly, crazily stupid as me and do what I'm doing. Stand up, be brave, be honest, tell your truth. Because they will get to critical mass. It will get to the point where they won't be able to maintain it, as alcohol prohibition proved. The only reason they don't have alcohol prohibition in America anymore is because everyone went, fuck that stupid law, and drank and drank and drank and drank. The politicians, the people, the police. That's exactly what is happening with the drugs in this country. We have Boris Johnson, our Prime Minister, who is known to have consumed cocaine. How is he still a Prime Minister? If another person admitted they'd consumed cocaine, they wouldn't be in their Prime Ministerial role, or their job role. Let's say you worked in B&Q, and they found out you had taken cocaine. Would you still have your job? What about if you're a teacher, or a police officer, or a nurse, or a carer, or a bus driver, or a postman? If you were found out to have taken cocaine in any of those jobs, would you still be in your job today? Or would you be dismissed because you've broken the Misuse of Drugs Act? Would you have your whole life destroyed by a criminal record? And all the prejudice that that brings into your life? Probably. Whereas Boris Johnson, he can consume cocaine if he pleases and gets away with it. Loads of other MPs. David Cameron, he's known to have used cannabis. Why did he get to still hold his job? Why is it the political elite, they can consume drugs with impunity, yet the non-political classes, the commoners, us poor folk, we can't? We're persecuted, prosecuted and profited from for our fundamental health choices. They say it's to protect us from harm. Go down the pub. You'll be all right. Go and get your prescription. And then your prescription for the side effects that that prescription causes. And then your prescription for the prescription for the prescription for all the other side effects those prescriptions cause. Because they don't solve your health problem. They mask your symptoms, cause more problems to get you more drugs so they can poly-prescribe to you. Interesting how the pharmaceutical industry and the alcohol industry both lobby and donate to our government and individual politicians and their parties. That brings out the question of impartiality. Now, there are maxims of law about we should be ruled by impartiality. Here's another good one I really liked, actually. Common custom is better than royal grant. In other words, if the people are doing it more than what the king or queen says, then it stands. Now, we've got 5 million cannabis consumers in the UK. Let's all stand together. Let's make it common custom. The use of cannabis in the UK is a common custom. Therefore, it's better than a royal grant. I'm just looking for one other. Oh, there's so many. Oh, I should have numbered them. Oh, I'm not going to sit here reading through. I'm going to do a whole post on maxims another day. So I've also pointed out to Robert that I'm very keen to discuss with the Conservative Drug Policy Reform Group any influence I can have upon them about the right to grow our own for herbal independence day and self-sufficiency. I can't afford prescriptions. I can't afford to go to the shops and buy products. I can afford some seeds and I can afford some soil. I'm poor. That's all I can afford. As a poor person, why should I be denied that right when companies can pay thousands of pounds for that same right, to have the same actions, to then make the same product to sell for great profits? It seems to me that capitalism has destroyed democracy in the UK, Because if you've got the money, you can do it. But if you haven't, you can't, and you can still go to prison. So we're obviously trying to challenge this for common law of the land, for the common person of the land, to have the right to get the seed of perhaps the most nutritious herb on the planet, the most resourceful herb on the planet that we can use for food, for our shelter, for our clothes, for our medicine, for our relaxation. We should be able to access that freely, without constraint. The only restriction should be, do not sell. And if you sell, well, here's a load of business regulations you now have to adhere to protect consumer and human rights. Now, whether they are interested in hearing from me, I don't know, because the Conservative drug policy, they'll be more about legalisation. They'll be more about inventing new laws with which to control us, punish us and profit from us. Whereas we, the undersigned, have a human sovereign right to cannabis, we aren't seeking legalisation and more laws for them to control, punish and profit from us. We're seeking decriminalisation. We're seeking the removal of criminal sanctions from our lives. I'm going to see, did I actually make a note of that? No, unfortunately. Yes. Decriminalisation is the legislative act or process of legalising an illegal act. That is what we're after. Legalisation is a slightly different thing. We want the legislative act to be made that legalises our currently illegal acts of possession, cultivation, distribution, preparation. Now when I say distribution, now a home grower distributing, that gives the impression you're going to be a business. You know, people should understand, if you sit and smoke a joint, a bong, a blunt, probably even cookies, medibles, anything with cannabis in, and you go, you consume, and then you pass to your friend, like you would do anything else you might share with your friends, they'll have you for supply and distribution, because you're supplying what they call a Schedule 1 drug with a Class B sentence, unevidenced. So it's interesting, I mentioned in my declaration that we should have the right guest rights. You visit my home, you want my tea, my coffee, my milk, my sugar, my tobacco, my alcohol, it's yours. You have guest rights in my home. Those things become your welcome to them because you're a guest in my property. But if I welcome you to my cannabis, I'm now a drug dealer and a distributor and a supplier. I challenge that concept. If I brew my own alcohol, make my own home brew, and you visit my home, we can share it. I will not be a criminal. You will not be a criminal because I haven't charged you. There's been no tax lost for the government because I paid tax on my brewing equipment. So everyone's happy. Could even sit there and drink ourselves to death. I know people that have done it. No problem. But if you do it with cannabis to improve your life and maintain your health, the government want to put you in prison for 14 years. So I'd like to make a Cannabis Aficionados Club, although that's a terrible acronym because it makes CAC. So I don't think that's a very good one. An aficionado is a fan. It's a Latin word, Spanish word. Si eres un aficionado de fútbol. If you're a fan of football, you're an aficionado de fútbol. So I'm an aficionado of cannabis. You have aficionados of wine, of cinema, of movie, of food. I'm an aficionado of cannabis, and so are you guys, many of you. We should be able to grow our own cannabis for ourselves and meet up once a month, once every 3 months, and share our wares. Oh, I've got an ounce of this. You got an ounce of that. Well, let's swap so we can have different ounces of each other's, yeah? No money passing hands. No money at all. Just the swapping and appreciation of a herb, which we could do with home brew. So why can't we do it with home grow, which is going to be part of our challenge. Now, I probably have just rambled and not said anything that I wrote compared to what I've even printed, because I don't want to sit here reading when I just want to sit and talk with you, which is why I probably haven't actually gone through any of that. I've also gone on to mention to Robert that a representative of the Labour Drug Policy Reform Group has contacted me. Now, this contact has come together through Bristol Cannabis Club, and they happen to have spoken with the person from the Labour Drug Policy Group. He called me. We had an in-depth chat, over an hour long. He agrees that it's a human rights issue. By the time I'd finished talking with him and sharing the knowledge I had, he was quite blown away. He would like us to contribute a submission. He's asked me to write this, what I told him, to submit it. I said, well, look at my website, look at my this, look at my that, because I can't write at the minute. But I'm still going to compile a document for him, because he's offering a conduit of communication to the Labour Party. Now, I will emphasise, the Green Party yesterday were sharing information about their new cannabis policy that's going to be revolutionary and grow your own CBD plants, right? Have they spoken to us? Have any of the Tory party, the Labour Party or the Green Party or any other party come and asked us, the oppressed canner community, those that have been hammered by these laws, those are the most affected, those that feel the impact of these laws the most, have they come and asked us, how do these laws impact your life? Well, how do they harm you? How can we improve them so they don't harm your lives as much? Have any party done that? Not to my knowledge. They may have gone to other groups that some people might consider puppet organisations that are led by other organisations with their hidden agendas and well financed. WTU is definitely not one of those. The only person behind WTU is that flag, you lot, me. We've got no business in interest. There's a couple of little businesses trying to support us because they want us to win. They want us to change this law. They're not trying to make money out of us because they're too tiny. Yeah, they'd like a few more businesses, customers, don't get me wrong. The point is, we aren't controlled by anybody but the people. We are the canner community. We represent our needs. There's no one giving WTU money and saying, I'm going to give you this money, but you can only say this. No one's controlling my mouth apart from me, and that's the way it will remain. So I was really, 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 really pleased that the Labour Party have taken the initiative of actually reaching out to the cannabis clubs, and I mean everywhere, the real people, yeah? They're trying to make a conduit of communication back to the Labour Party. Not promising it will be acted upon or even listened to, but at least the effort is being made for our voices of us who have been hammered by these laws for decades to now come forward and explain to the government or the parties how they can change these laws to not destroy our lives, protect people, reduce harms and respect human rights. I'm obviously going to try and make such contact with the Green Party. I have posted on their pages asking them these questions, telling them who I am and what my intention is. I haven't heard anything yet. I will contact them and try. Because not only my voice, but the Labour Party wanted your voices too. They would like me to try and facilitate something where you can have your chance to get your submission into the Labour Party for how you think cannabis law reform should occur. That's a political party of the people, people. They're asking the people, how do you want these laws changed? They're not dictating from on high like these other parties are that have lied to us for all these years. They're actually turning around and asking the people, right people, how can we change this law? That sounds like democracy to me, rather than the dictatorship that we live under. So, if you fancy you might have something you want to add to that, let me know. When if it comes together and we manage to get like a little platform, we could have a little submission form. I'll obviously post it through you all. And I'm going to try and see if Raphael Michelou, because he's no longer contracted GW, so I've heard. I'm wondering if he might be willing to be an expert witness for WTU too. I haven't actually heard yet back from Professor Nutt. And there's a few others. I think we should get just as many experts as possible, I like to believe. Bear me a moment. Yes, on a more cheerful note. I wrote a poem. I sometimes get words in my head. I want to put them down. I try and make them rhyme and have the same word at the end. There's nothing fancy to it. Anyone can do it, really, if you just put your mind to it and have a bit of lose inhibitions and just try. Don't worry if you get it wrong. So yeah, I managed to knock out a poem whilst I was actually studying Maxim's Law Dictionary, which I don't know how I did that, but I did. And it's inspired people to want to put it to music, to get our message out further. We have talked about a WTU album before to raise funds, so WTU Canna Aid seems to be a very suitable title. So we've now made a little group, WTU Canna Aid, and that will be to make an album from our community of us, genuine, real people, authentic music, authentic words, not scripted from anyone but the real people. And we will try to publish it with a proper record publisher so that any royalties can go back to the WTU movement and any sales can go for the WTU, and it will basically try to be a fundraiser. Obviously this could then be extended to live performances around the country if people felt like it. We could even make theatrical performances to show the farce of prohibition for what it is. You know, like I've mentioned in one of my posts to the police, right? The police are sharing these hate posts on cannabis people. Look at us, we've arrested this poor person and destroyed his life because he had a benign, nutritious herb in his pocket, or her. And I wrote in one of the posts, it's interesting because not long ago, the police were like queer bashing. The police were going out bender bashing. I'm not using those as derogatory terms, by the way. I don't care what you do with your body. It's your body. I don't care what two consenting adults do with their bodies. It's their bodies. None of my business. Nothing to do with me. But previously, not that long ago in the UK, if you were homosexual or of a different sexual orientation other than the state dictated heterosexuality, you were punished by the police, you were persecuted, you were beaten, you were tortured, you were put in mental asylums, okay? If you were black and you wanted to get on a bus or go in a cafe or cross a certain street, you'd be beat on by the police. If you're a woman, you had no rights whatsoever, none at all. That's us, that's cannabis, that's canna community. We've lost our rights, we've never had them, they were taken away by lying, deceitful politicians that wanted to profit and protect their invested interests. So we need to change that. Because in the police force now, you have people of colour, people of different sexual orientations, with rank, with pips on their shoulders. Yeah? So that shows how law does not imply morality. In fact, the law is often immoral in its application and more harmful in its application than the harm it should be preventing. Law shouldn't dictate morals. Morals can't be legislated. So my belief is that one day the police will stop persecuting cannabis people and maybe even have people that use cannabis in the police. So long as they're not stoned on the job, what difference does it make? In fact, seeing as they can go home and get pissed out of their skulls and get really, really drunk, and they're encouraged to drink, one might question, do they care about the welfare of their officers? They've obviously not done their due diligence. So the WTU Canna Aid is coming together. We've already got a small group together of musicians, poets, people that just want to join in on something creative. So if you want to join in on that, please come and join the group. I'll put the link in here. It's going to stay very focused. It's got to stay very focused to the musical, the album. Otherwise, it'll just fizzle out and become nothing. We could even get a Christmas album done in time if we actually put our effort to it. We've got so many poems already that exist within WTU. We've got musicians galore. So just get together, put it together. I think it can be hammered out. So if nothing more, it's a way to express ourselves in a non-violent way. What a way to protest. Let's all go and get outside Parliament and sing. Sing for our freedom. Sing about the hypocrisy. I don't believe in violence, which is why I don't incite people to violence. Although I can understand why lots of people, if they knew what I knew, might want to go and smash that house to pieces. But that wouldn't be the answer. Violence is not the answer. We need to find a way to change it without violence. That said, how long can a community be attacked for before it stands up to defend itself? So on that note, I'm going to go off now and compose a letter to an expert in the Misuse of Drugs Act to give them my thoughts, feelings and insights that, not mine, but other people have given to me, and get their insight and see what they say. Crikey, that was a right old long talk. Questions, that was it. Oh wow, it's so mad. My art teacher's watching me now. Oh, miss. Funny old world, isn't it? I'm just going to quickly scroll through and see if we've got any questions. Mostly it's good mornings. Right, I've got things here telling me people can come on camera. So I could actually invite people on camera. I think it's only one at a time. But I was wondering, how would people feel about doing these sort of one-to-one interviews? We could sit on and share. I love you too, John. We could sit on and share our stories, our experiences, tell our truths, and then they could be put up onto our YouTube channel, Cannabis Connoisseurs Club. Sorry, Dobby, didn't mean to scare you, boy. Yeah, much better than CAC, Cannabis Aficionados Club. It just doesn't ring, does it? Cannabis Connoisseurs Club. That's what we need to make. Education centres and Cannabis Connoisseurs Clubs. Good old bartering. I'm just scrolling through. Oh, my lovely Lou's watching. Sorry, Lou, I had to hang up your call, darling. I was in the middle of blah, blah, blahing like I do. It's about someone trying to listen. We're going to try and make them listen one way or another. To do them in gallu credit. My art teacher's watching me at the minute. What a small world. Right then, I'm going to go. Oh no, there's one other thing I haven't talked about. The whole reason this case hasn't been submitted at the minute is my body, because I'm literally only just starting to recover from Know Your Roots. And when I say recover, that doesn't mean going back to being a normal, fit and healthy person. That means going back to my usual level of crocked, rather than this like super, super high level of absolutely crocked by my condition. Sorry, I'm just shook because someone's wrote something. Don't forget that the government itself cannot provide a definition of misuse in the context of the Misuse of Drugs Act. If they can't provide a definition, how can they prosecute us for misusing it? And this is what I wrote to them and told them back in 2014. I'm not misusing my cannabis. I'm using it responsibly like an informed adult should. So there's no other questions there, I think. That's everything. That was it, yes. I've been offered some office space. A friend of our community, in our community, the Sperries, they've got an office space that they've offered me to go to for a few days. They're offering to put me up so I don't need to worry about anything. There's a space for maybe 3 or 4 other people who could join me in this office space, because I literally can't even do the printing, because you've got to be moving your arms to load the printers and taking the paper out. These tiny fine movements it's like my arms are riddled with barbed wire, so it's out of the question. So I would literally need someone to do all the physicals for me, and they would have to be very focused. We'd have just a handful of days in this office that has printers and phones, and we'd have our laptops. And also I want to create a digital office, because I know people like Chris Stevens, Alan Buffery, they're just the 2 that spring to my head. You've got a lot to offer to this case with your insight, so if we can have a digital collaboration document where we can all be working together on one document, adding all our bits in, and then I can be in this office making it into one cohesive document, it could be phenomenal. You know, it should be like this big. It should be a stack, because we've all got so much information and knowledge from all our different areas. So I think hopefully I will be creating the content, which obviously will be open to suggestions and edits from the community. And then I want to make a digital office for my dream team. I'd like to make a dream team so we can actually get the right people with the right skills and the right knowledge to come together to support me and WTU to build this evidence bundle, so we can now get it into the barrister and the solicitor and say, there you go, that's what we've paid you to have a look at. Off you go, have a look and come back to us. Now, given in Mexico, it is now being written into law that the right to cultivate and consume cannabis is a fundamental human right under the rights of development of personality and self-determination. Human rights, they know no borders, nor territories, nor boundaries. It doesn't matter which genocidal government might be in power in whichever country. A human right is a human right, whether that country has determined or deigned to recognise it yet or not. The Philippines were murdering people for cannabis not long ago. Now I think they're making legal medicine cannabis legal. The Monk Report. Nice, Chris Stevens. But no, that's all about me. The WTU report. Forget the name Monk. It's all about us. It's the WTU report, and that's what we'll have to call it, I reckon, Steve. The WTU report. So in collaboration, it can be done. Now we have digital collaboration. We could make a digital online office. So, and again, it's got to be super focused. No chatter, no flip flap. Straight on the bullet. This is what we're doing, and this is what we're getting on. 5 days max. Bang it out. Print it up. Collate it together, and let me get it down to London. Get it before this human rights barrister, and let's get this rocking and a rolling, folks. Because it needs to end, and only together can we ever make it happen. Reminds me, someone told me in a conversation recently, only Parliament can change the law. When Parliament passes a law, it becomes a supreme law, or supreme is the wrong word. So I'm looking into this because we need to repeal this law. We need to know how we can repeal a law because it's based on lies. It's got no foundation in evidence and it's causing more harm than it prevents. So we need to find out how to repeal a law, which I think only Parliament can do, which I think we need to start winning over some politicians to make them pick up the case as well. Where will the office space be? The actual office space is in Wales. Mid Wales, I think. Not too far out of Cardiff, about half an hour out of Cardiff. If people were travelling, we could make transport arrangements. We can't obviously fund people's accommodation because we haven't got the money. I'm being offered a bed in a room. They can't offer more, but whether we could see if other members in the area could accommodate people. We're looking at 3-4 people maximum. There is ways round it, and hopefully we'll get it together. But like I say, this letter I'm about to send to the police, they might come and arrest me, and I might be getting charged, and I might be challenging the charges all the way, and we might not even need to do anything. But we'll see what happens. Right, that's it. I'm off. Pains are kicking in. Lots of love, people. Keep smiling, because that keeps your anandamide flowing, and anandamide is your body's version of THC. Anandamide is your endocannabinoid of the phytocannabinoid THC. Right, lots of love, people. Take care, speak soon, and keep smiling.